We're on chapter 2. There's a solution. It is page 17 in the big book. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. So the first 100 people are we of Alcoholics Anonymous. Recovered means from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body on page 20. It says that's what we've recovered from. We've not recovered from alcoholism. We've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. We have made progress. We have improved. The problem is never eliminated. It's never completely eliminated. You're never going to just be like, I wanted to be lazy and say, okay, now I don't have to do anything else. Now I can, but it's just an ongoing daily thing. Never recovered from a disease that's contained in our genes. Because once you pick up a drink again, the disease kicks back in. They have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans, all sections of this country, and many of its occupations are represented as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship of friendliness and understanding which is indescribably wonderful. Like family, nobody's unique because it says right there that we have all different kinds of people. And they told me when I went to AA that I was suffering from a case of terminal uniqueness. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. A great liner is a big ship. Camaraderie is mutual trust and friendship among people who spend a lot of time together. This is what we're going for. This is perfection. In the beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous, back then, all you had was your word is your bond. Now there's so many people that you have to be a little more choosy, even in Alcoholics Anonymous. Joyousness, democracy. Democracy is the practice of principles of social equality. And it's not perfect, but ideally in Alcoholics Anonymous, there wouldn't be any bosses, anyone trying to control the club, anyone trying to say who could join and who could. Unfortunately, that's not the reality today. A lot of people are being denied their chance at sobriety in life and condemned to death because they are not being accepted into some of these AA halls. They're really sick. Just be aware. From steerage to captain's table is from low class to VIP. Okay? It shouldn't matter. The problem is that there's ego problems, and the ego problems are that, everybody wants to be the boss, Everybody wants to be the boss, and everybody can't be the boss. Everybody can be the boss of their self. If everybody is the boss of their self and they're not trying to boss other people around, I think that's good. But when they're trying to be the boss of everybody else and boss other people around, That's immoral and it's unethical and it is out of alignment with the intention of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're an AA club, I would question whether you are an AA club or not. If there's a club that is trying to control, it is not an AA club. It's something else. It's some kind of cult. That's not an AA club. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. It's just one. It's just one part. The feeling of have shared in common peril. I mean, this is obvious. In danger, we were close to death, and the people that cared about other people that come in and help you, and and care about your life. Those are the ones you bond with. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. In the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the common solution is the program of action and the application of the spiritual principles contained in the 12 steps. That's the way out on which the first 100 and thereafter absolutely agree on. Okay, and then in the practicing of that, we can, if we are practicing that, join together with other people that are actually practicing that and come into harmony and flow as a unit. You can't really flow as a unit in a group that's divided against itself. You can't be a part of it either. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. Let me reiterate, there are lots of different groups. The program is contained in this book. It's not contained in an AA hall. Harmonious is free from disagreement. So you don't got to do what people tell you to do to stay sober. You don't got to do what you got to do. What you got to do is, if you want to stop drinking, what this book says you got to do is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. But you don't even got to do that. If you don't do it, you can take your chances out there and go back to where you were. What you don't got to do is you don't got to keep drinking and you don't got to keep drugging because now it says right here, we don't have to do that anymore. Page 18, an illness of this sort, and we have come to believe that an illness involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. It's a spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial disease. Alcoholism affects every single facet of a human being's life. It is not one thing, it encompasses every aspect of a human being's life. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one's angry or hurt. But not so with the alcoholic illness, for with it goes the annihilation of all things worthwhile in life, the complete destruction of friends, family, jobs, mental health, emotional health, physical health. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers, and it spreads from, like, obviously one human being affects other people. So, it's going to affect other people. Your family and the people around you and the people that love you. It's going to hurt them to see you suffer if they love you. It will hurt them to see you suffer, and they will try to help because they are normal human beings that try to help suffering people. But the more that they try to help, the more an alcoholic will depend on their help, and the less they'll have to do for themselves. So that's kind of the problem. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list. And it's, an alcoholic doesn't intentionally try to harm other people. It's accidentally. What they're doing is what they're doing is trying to escape the uh, pain of whatever reality, trauma, you know, that they can't face. Something they can't deal with, something they haven't coped with yet, maybe. It's part of it. For me, hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or who may be affected. There are many. So there's shame from family because if alcoholic is, as they might see that you're unwilling to change when you're incapable of changing, so they may shun you and give you guilt and shame to try to guilt and shame you into changing, and all that does is backfire and make you worse, because we all know now, I mean, guilt and shame are improper motivators for an alcoholic or an addict to get sober. You can't guilt and shame someone into change. You can't love them into change. All you can do is try to be present with them through it until they make a choice on their own or not, and it's their own. You're either going to choose to live for God or choose to live for yourself. There's no middle. We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who, okay. Highly competent psychiatrists who've dealt with this have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss the situation without reserve. Very capable and not knowledgeable professional people have not been able to get us to talk honestly with them. There's a lot of shame and guilt. We don't, without reserve is without holding back. So they can't really help us with the problem they don't know about, and they can't know about it if we're not telling them what it is. And we can't tell them what it is if the shame and guilt, which is the shame and guilt is an emotional pain that's felt as a physical pain. So now we know emotional pain in the brain represents as physical pain in our bodies. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrists and doctors. That's because we don't want the people that we love to think badly about us even more than we don't want strangers to. So it has to be a stranger that we don't give a shit about. We don't care what they think about us. Self esteem versus false pride. Now, here's the effective approach. But the ex problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with the facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. So now the effective approach is a person who has overcome alcoholism or addiction, who's able to describe to the other person things about their self. So you're not going to say, most of the time, I'm not going to say always, most of the time it's going to be a stranger who's able to talk freely about their own defects and problems. It's not going to be a friend or family member or even a doctor or somebody that you know well that's going to be able to tell you what your problem is. No one wants to hear you point the finger at them. But if they can identify with you sharing your shortcomings, then maybe they can say, hey, I might, maybe I have this too. Because once again, the shame and guilt is so heavy. It's been put on them for so long, for so many years. It's so painful and it's overpowering. You can be paralyzed, paralyzed by shame and guilt. That the same man who's making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he's talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the prospect that he's a man with a real answer, his way of behaving, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, so there's nothing big ego looking down on everybody else, okay? Nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful. Okay, we're not someone that the person is trying to actually sincerely help you, that they're not benefiting in a financial way. They're not trying to obtain anything from you. They don't want your money. They don't want your physical labor. They don't want, to exploit you. They're not going to exploit you for anything. As a matter of fact, if someone's trying to help you and you offer them money, they will turn it down if they're working a real program of Alcoholics Anonymous. They'll turn down every help that you get because they know that their real payment comes from that. If you take the financial payment or the physical payment of a human being for your spiritual work, you don't get the spiritual payment. And a spiritual payment is always going to be better than a material payment. It's a spiritual program. The sincere desire, sincere, honest, not manipulative. That there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. No axes to grind, no points to prove. No one telling you, no lectures. That means they're not going to tell you went wrong here, 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 and here, and you need to do this, and you need to do. That's a lecture. These are the conditions we have found most effective. This is the effective approach. Okay? It's not my words. It's words. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. Effective means helpful and successful. John 5:8, rise, take up your bed and walk, indicates a call to action upon a new life. None of us make a sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. It's not going to be like our only hobby, okay? It's not our life's work. It's not our job. It's not our job. We feel the elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. Ain't no kidding. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated they can give nearly all their time to the work. Okay, a real program is how effectively we apply spiritual principles to our home life and workplace. Some people are financially set and able to donate their time to the altruistic movement of Alcoholics Anonymous in its pure form. If we keep on the way we're going, there's little doubt that much good will result, but the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by, hundreds are dropping into oblivion. So now we have 488 people a day in 2024 that die from alcoholism. As society increases, that number is going to increase. because there's, with just many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed, if they had the chance that we got. And we want to make sure they get the chance that we got. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given to us? Matthew 10:8 says, share your gifts. Freely you have received, freely give, which is what I'm doing here in this trying. We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with the drinking problem. It's just it's kind of an outline suggestion, and then you build on it. So the spiritual program and the spiritual principles in the 12 steps are basic. That's what suggestion means. They're basic, and then you have to build on it. Of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. They're likely to cause public disagreement. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a perfect program where there would be no disagreement at all? Unfortunately, we live on planet Earth. We shall do our best, our utmost to achieve that perfect ideal. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions and attitudes, which make us more useful to others. So we're going to try our best to achieve the perfect ideal and put up with and endure other people's faults like they do ours. Endure the faults and weaknesses of others, respect their way of seeing things, have a good out attitude. To be helpful is our only aim. Page 89. Let's go there. Real quick. Okay. At the very bottom of the page, it says, so cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. And I'm criticizing, but I gotta say as I see it. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. We have to get into the practice of thinking about someone else other than ourselves, because when you're living in survival mode and you're thinking, how am I going to survive from day to day, your brain can get stuck there and out of fear and stuck in fear and survival mode. How am I going to get, you know what I mean? And you just have to practice. Yeah. You can get out of your head, the squirrel cage where your head's going around in thoughts. The only way to get out of that is to think about someone else. Not in a codependent way, but in a healthy way. You may how much we got? Okay, you may already have asked yourself, why is it that all of us become so very ill from drinking? Doubtless you're curious to discover how and why. In the face of expert opinion to the contrary, we have recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. See, that's what we recover from. Hopeless condition of mind and body, right there. If you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? Okay, we want to know why we got this way, and we want to know how, and we want to know exactly what we have to do. It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. We will tell you what we have done. Even though the big book will tell you what we've done, there are still a lot of other little bits of information you can get in the recovery community Everyone has their own little path that, that works for them. Everybody will have stuff that works for them and that doesn't work for them because we're all different. But it's worth trying. I was told to try for 2 weeks something new and at least give it a chance before I just automatically dismiss it because we like instant gratification. If it doesn't work right away, we don't want to do it because we don't want to work. But, the more effort you put in, the more you're going to get out. Uh, okay. Before going into detailed discussion, which is going to detail the 12 steps, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. So now they're going to outline again. How many times people have said to us, I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't he? Shame and guilt. Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? Shame and guilt. That fellow can't handle his liquor. Shame and guilt. Why don't you try beer and wine? Lay off the hard stuff. Condemnation. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. She's such a sweet girl. I think he'd stop for her sake. The doctor told him if he ever drank again, it'd kill him. But there he is, all lit up again. Now these these are commonplace observations on drinkers, which we hear all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. These are ordinary, commonplace, I want to say sometimes bullies, okay, mockers. I've seen bullies, and I stopped it, but I've seen bullies beat up on alcoholics just because they were alcoholic for no other reason, because they think they're better. Comments. So these people lack knowledge and they don't know any better because what they're doing is they're projecting themselves onto other people. They think that you are like them and you are nothing like them and everybody's different. So especially alcoholics and addicts are different than people who don't have the addiction gene on their chromosomes. And even if you do have the addiction gene on your chromosome, and even if you were able to overcome it in a specific way, doesn't necessarily mean someone else is going to be able to do it in the exact amount of time in the exact way you did, because once again, they're not you. If they were you, they would have done it your way. Because everybody's brain operates differently and everybody's brain has different neural pathways and everybody's different brain has different brain chemistry. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? But bullies don't know that. Can you tell I got a problem with bullies? I've been beat up a lot. Moderate drinkers, now we're going into there's 3 different kinds. So average drinkers have little trouble giving up liquor entirely if they have a good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. And then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. But if a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome, and he may even need medical attention. I think that's what my dad was, because he was able to moderate, and that's not something I've ever been able to do. But I really think he was a real alcoholic. A reaction is a person's ability to respond physically and mentally to external stimuli. So the people who are saying, oh, you could do better if you wanted to. If, those people are reacting to an alcoholic, or they're responding physically and mentally the way they do. Well, okay, but the real alcoholic. We're going to start on page 21 on the real alcoholic. I don't want to go over 30 minutes, and then we're going to talk about the real alcoholic, okay?